to Randi. It's Randi Rhodes on Premier Radio Networks.
I'm just having so much fun with Ronald Reagan today, I have to say, because he agrees with me. And that is just going to burn the ass of every conservative that is having their producer monitoring this show or is listening to rebut me or whatever the hell you do with it. But Ronald Reagan, he was president for about 2 years, and he had a meeting with Republican congressional candidates. Now, the reason why I find this so attractive is because I do think that this is something Barack Obama needs to be doing. I understand that Ronald Reagan had this genial personality that was unique. I mean, even I, would listen to him and giggle. I mean, I didn't feel this bile build up in my throat when I listened to Ronald Reagan because he had a way of charming you into voting against your own best interest. It wasn't so much fear and loathing. It was kind of, defiant. And people in this country, especially Republicans who have this need to be led by somebody stronger than them while bitching and moaning the whole time that you're out to get me. It's some weird paranoia thing, but they do have this authoritarian personality, meaning they need to prey on the weak, but they also need to be led by somebody who's obstinate, somebody who says shut up, somebody who lays down the law, somebody who gives them boundaries that they never had as a child. Ronald Reagan was that guy. Ronald Reagan used to scream at the media. He used to yell at them. And in this one clip from October 6, 1982, Ronald Reagan was meeting with Republican-only congressional candidates, but he used to bring them into the East Room and have it televised. And it was must carry because Ronald Reagan was going to give the playbook for how they were going to run in the midterms on the TV. This is something that Barack Obama ought to do. Truly. Get a bunch of Democrats in the East Room of the White House, put it on TV, it'd be must carry. Everybody would watch. And if Barack Obama could scream and yell at these people in front of the cameras, everybody would go, ooh, he's so strong, say what you will about him, but he's very strong. But Ronald Reagan was asked a question by some guy who went on and on, a Republican who was running for Congress again, who was scared about his re-election chances, because when Ronald Reagan was elected, the unemployment rate was about 7 point something, 7.1, 2, 3, something in that. By this time, Ronald Reagan is president for 2 years. The midterms are coming up, and unemployment is over 9%. Over 9%. Because Ronald Reagan had lowered taxes, expecting more revenue, and the whole thing busted open. I mean, it was a fantasy that they were living, that you could lower taxes and spend on defense. I mean, it was just, it was called the Economic Recovery Tax Act. He passed it in July of 81. It was reductions in the marginal tax rates. They were substantial, but it broke the back of the economy. It failed miserably. It created a massive budget deficit. It totally weakened the economy. And we still had a because the Fed did not know what it was doing in the day. They figured out that you can buy bonds now. You can do this stuff and not see inflation go up. Well, they didn't know what they were doing. These Republicans never know what they're doing. And inflation went through the freaking roof. I mean, to get a home mortgage was like 20% interest. 20%. And it killed the economy. Killed it. So, of course, the next year, he passed the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, and he raised taxes. And this is what they don't want to ever talk about, okay? They always leave this part out. But he signed one of the biggest peacetime tax increases ever signed into law by any of our presidents. And that was their leader, Ronald Reagan. It kicked off one of the most bull cycles in our financial history, and that's the one that people remember. But that was because he raised taxes. But at this point, he was sticking to his guns about, hey, let's lower taxes, let's drive up the budget deficit, inflation is spiraling out of control. Hey, let the economy tank. And unemployment skyrocketed. We actually, at this point, it was at 9%. It wouldn't stop until we were way over 10%. It was the biggest unemployment number we'd ever seen under Ronald Reagan. And so now the congressional candidates are all assembled in the East Room, and they're freaking out. How are we going to get elected again? How? And Ronald Reagan simply said to them, yeah, all right, I take responsibility for what we're doing. And if it goes to 10%, I'll take responsibility for that, too. And it did. But This is how cavalier they were.
And unemployment is 9.8%.
9.8.
When we took office, it was 7.4%.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll take blame for 2.4% of the unemployment.
Hey, that sounds good. We could sell that.
And if, as everybody is worried about, that it goes to 10%, well, then I'll take blame for 2.6%. But we seem to be the only ones that are really on track in government today. When I say we, I mean the Republicans in the Congress in both houses and ourselves, plus some responsible Democrats who are not following the leadership of their party. We seem to be the only ones that are trying to solve not just the 2.4% that's come along in the last 20 months, but the whole 9.8% until we get everyone who wants a job back working in this country.
Yeah, well, it never happened. It didn't happen until he raised taxes and started paying down some of the debt. But then they started spending again. But where did they spend? And it does matter where you spend. In his 2 terms as president, Ronald Reagan cut the budgets of the Department of Housing and Urban Development by 40%, the Department of Commerce by 32%, the Department of Agriculture by 24%, the Department of Education by 19%, the Department of Transportation by 18%. But he never cut the budget for the Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, the Justice Department, or the State Department. When he took office, the debt was $994 billion in 1981. When Ronald Reagan left office, the debt was $2.9 trillion. That's Ronald Reagan. He never once submitted a balanced budget in his 8 years in office. And like I said, deficits when he took office were in the mid-billions, okay? And by the time he left office, it was $2.9 trillion. That's the debt. He added so much to the backs of me. You know how they say they're adding to the backs of the children? Yeah, he put it on Jessica, he put it on me, he put it on you, and we're still paying for it. Just so you know. And their cavalier attitude about an unemployment rate of almost 10% was, you know, it was 7 when I came into office, so what? So we're adding to the unemployment roll. So what? Who cares? Who cares? We're getting our way. We're getting our way. That's the record of Obama. Now, Barack Obama, on the other hand, inherited the worst economic disaster of any president since FDR acquired the debacle from Hoover in 1933. This president that we have currently, one of the first things he did after Lilly Ledbetter to try and get women equal pay was to sign the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, the stimulus, the porculus, right? And they forget that in the last 17 months of W, the stock market saw a historical loss of almost 60%, 58% from peak to trough. That affected us in our 401ks. Anybody that's lucky enough to have money in the stock market, we took such a bad. It was the worst. This was the worst thing, the worst rolling 17-month period that we've seen since the Great Depression. And we've seen this incredible recovery from that. And the Republicans just sit there and they say, Ronald Reagan, Ronald Reagan, Ronald Reagan, Ronald Reagan. Why? I don't know. I don't know. He was for gun control. He was for banning AK-47s. He said the same exact words about Social Security that Bernie Sanders just said in an appearance that Bernie Sanders just did on Capitol Hill. It's so funny. Maybe politicians don't have that many words. I don't know. But they said the same exact words. Social Security has nothing to do with the deficit. It's completely funded by payroll taxes.
Social Security has nothing to do with the deficit.
Nothing.
Social Security is totally funded by the payroll tax levied on employer and employee.
Okay.
Social Security has nothing to do with deficit reduction. Because Social Security has not contributed a nickel to the deficit, because, as we all know, and the American people know, it is independently funded by the payroll tax.
there's not the same sort of cultural norm.
No, there isn't. There's not the same cultural norm. It's just, I don't know. It's very strange to me. It's very weird to me how you could do the same exact words. I mean, maybe politicians don't know that many words. I don't know. But the same exact words can cause people to compare this president to Saddam Hussein. They can cause him to be compared to Mao, to Marx, to freaking Germany, to Adolf. Same words. Wow. D in Ohio.
Randy, good to talk to you.
Where are you?
I'm calling from Toledo, Ohio.
Oh, Toledo, okay.
I just want to say I commend you for saying what you said about putting Social Security up on the budget, knowing good and well that the Republicans aren't going to approve it.
They already rejected it. The day he put that plan out, they already said no. So it's done. It's over. Now what Obama can say is, I put 2-to-1 cuts to spending on the table. I put entitlements on the table. I asked for a little bit of revenue, a little tiny bit by closing some corporate loopholes to offshore Americans' jobs, and they still said no.
Exactly. I mean, it kills me that the older left of little faith, understanding he knows what's going on, that they're never going to approve it. Just be patient and see what happens. That's my thing.
I will say this. I understand why people are very, wary about ever putting Social Security on the chopping block, because the most vulnerable people are seniors. My mother is 83 years old. Like I said, she is a cancer survivor, and she worked every single day of her life until she was 80. 80! She just retired 3 years ago. Which, by the way, she's driving me crazy, so somebody hire her. But, oh, God. But, because all she does now is call me up and go, why didn't you call me? I said, because I spoke to you yesterday. I spoke to you 2 hours ago. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. I called your cell phone. My cell phone keeps track of every single incoming call. Well, then it's broken. So somebody give her a job as a Walmart. I don't care. But my mother lives on that. She has no other income. Okay, zero. She's lucky because she has one surviving child who did well, and, of course, I helped my mother. Why wouldn't I, do something like that? But, there are seniors. I see how they live. I understand how proud they are. They have worked their whole lives. Some of them were able to save. Some of them weren't. My mother was able to save until she got cancer. It wiped her out. Wiped her out. That's why we all live in Florida. The truth be told, that's why we came here. She had to come here. She couldn't afford to live in New York anymore. So she came here, and, of course, I came here to be with her, and so did my sister. That's how we all ended up here. That's what families do. But it isn't enough. When you're 83 years old and you're living on $1,200 a month and you have a Medigap policy that costs $800 every 3 months just for the premium, and you got to buy food and you got a little bit of a mortgage left over, I'm sorry, but, cutting cost of living is not a good place to cut. Right. So I understand why people are sensitive about it. I am, too. All I'm saying is it was a non-starter from the beginning, and people ought to be a little more sophisticated about the strategy, and that it's been rejected by the Republicans almost instantly. It was rejected. So it's not even on the table, and yet people are still bitching and moaning and writing me hate letters.
Well, I just wanted to, like I said, commend you for actually speaking as what it is and not what it seems to be.
Right. And that's the point is, if you want to see, but I will say this. One of the strategies that Ronald Reagan was so good at using was he would gather all the Republicans that needed to run again and talk to them on the TV and scream and yell at them and tell them, I don't give a rat's ass, what you think. Here's what I'm doing. And you either get with the program or you go. You're going to, you get no support from the White House. I think the president needs to do that. It's free. It shows leadership. It's kind of strong talk. The authoritarian, we could have Obama Republicans if the president would do it this way.
I agree.
Just saying, White House, I love you. Just saying. 48 after.
Randy Rhodes.
Freedom of speech. Deal with it. This is The Randi Rhodes Show.
Hi, it's Carell. Find out why the union's full of hosts, but there's only one of me. Every Monday through Friday, right here on KRXA AM 540 from 4 to 6. Tune in.